Hello, welcome to Southgate Informed. I'm Mayor Bill DeWitt with the City of Southgate, and we have a special program today. And with me, I have some very special guests. I have Maria Davila, one of my colleagues on the City Council here, and she is also Vice Mayor of the City of Southgate and is currently the Chairman of the Vector Control Authority. And so she's kind of an expert on this. But we have another expert here with us, Levy's son over here. How are you doing? Welcome to Southgate Informed. And he is with the Vector Control Authority. And they're going to tell us a little bit about the Zika problem and mosquitoes in general and what to do and what not to do to protect ourselves from a public health point of view. And so, Levy, could you give us a little idea of what your organization does?
Sure, definitely. And thank you for having me here today. And this basically with vector control, it is just our responsibility is to reduce and hopefully eliminate any animal or insect that can become a nuisance or can transmit diseases to people. Now for our organization, the Greater LA County Vector Control District, we focus primarily on 3 different vectors. They're midges, black flies, and the one insect that really bugs us the most is the mosquito.
How many mosquitoes do we have in this area, or different types?
Around the world, we have more than 3,000 species of mosquitoes. In California, we have a little over 50. And just in Los Angeles County, we have a little over a dozen different species of mosquitoes. The good news is only a few of these mosquito species actually harm people when they bite us.
No, first of all, I would like to thank you, Mayor, for making this program happen. And I think it's important for us to communicate to the community, especially right now, the Zika virus. It's very strong in other areas other than California. And we have seen in Florida how they are treating it. But the concern of the community is, what do we do? How do we take care of ourselves? And I think it's important for us to communicate that to the community. How can we help to prevent those mosquitoes to grow? And I think Libby, he's very good in explaining those issues to our community. So Libby, I want to thank you. And if you can tell us a little bit about, not a little bit, but about the Zika virus. What is a Zika virus?
The Zika virus is a disease that people can get through the bite of a particular type of mosquito. And we call them the Aedes mosquito. And when people do get bit by these Aedes mosquitoes, they can possibly receive the Zika virus. Now I do want to say this. We do have the mosquito, the Aedes mosquito, here in Southgate and throughout much of LA County. However, the virus, so far that we've seen, has not been locally transmitted yet from mosquito to people. So the Zika virus is primarily transmitted to people from mosquitoes. However, what is really interesting is that it is also sexually transmitted. And we have never seen anything like this before in Southern California. It adds a whole new dimension of a challenge for us to control these mosquitoes, and especially controlling the virus itself. That is why in Vector Control, we're working really closely with the Department of Public Health to make sure we have an emergency plan set up just in case anything happens here in Southgate or anywhere else in LA County. Now, I will say this. It is scary hearing all the news stories out there. We hear a lot of stories about the Zika outbreaks in South America. We've heard it recently in Florida. And my philosophy is we expect the worst so we can train for the worst and prepare for the worst. Not that the worst will happen or can happen or is likely to happen, but we want to make sure that we have all our ducks lined up in a row so that when it comes time, we can easily reach out to not only the residents, but also the cities and also any other community partner that we have in LA County.
So what we're trying to do here, I think, is to inform our public of the problem and what to do about it, and make sure they're aware that we're working very hard to control this problem. Because I don't think we're going to eliminate all mosquitoes, but it's something that's been a plague on humans for literally thousands of years. I can remember back reading about when they built the Panama Canal and the yellow fever epidemic that really eliminated the French from building that canal, and finally the Americans came in and suffered a lot of casualties due to yellow fever, but then eventually that was overcome, and through the good work of organizations like yours and our federal health people in controlling that problem with mosquitoes. Now this mosquito, are these very small mosquitoes or large mosquitoes? In other words, give us a little idea about what they look like, and so what our public can be aware of. And I think a little later on you're going to have some stuff on the screen that will show specifically what they are. But tell us a little bit about these mosquitoes.
Definitely. Well, all mosquitoes in Southern California are no bigger than a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch in size, so very tiny. With these Aedes mosquitoes that can transmit Zika, they're about a 1/4 inch. They're small black and white striped mosquitoes. And for a lot of residents, when they see these mosquitoes, that stands out immediately to them because it's nothing like we've seen before.
Is it also the West Nile, is that handled by these same mosquitoes, or is that a different mosquito?
It is handled by our native mosquito. They're called a Culex mosquito, the southern house mosquito, and they're the ones that transmit West Nile virus, and we've had them around for a lot longer time. These Aedes mosquitoes are considered invasive, and they were more recently found in our communities a couple years ago.
Now you're getting way above my pay grade here. But it's very interesting, I think, but it is very important from a public health point of view that we get this information out to our public, to our citizens in Southgate and the surrounding communities, because it is a very important thing, because I think we've all seen pictures of these newborn infants that are somewhat deformed, and it's kind of scary when you look at these. So that's why it's important that we're dealing with this problem now.
And talking about mosquitoes, sometimes we think that the big mosquito, and what is it called, the big one? It's the one that has the virus, and it's not. It's the small ones are the ones that have those disease. Because sometimes we see those big mosquitoes, and what are they called?
Yeah, during the springtime, we see these what we assume are big mosquitoes that are the size of our palms, or bigger than a quarter. Those are called crane flies. And these crane flies, they look menacing, and they're great at scaring kids and adults alike when they're bouncing around your home, but they have no biting mouth parts, so they are perfectly harmless.
I always thought when I was in Texas and in Alaska, you'd get about a dozen of those mosquitoes. They could almost pick you up and carry you away because they're really quite threatening, and at least in looking at it. But it's really the small mosquitoes, the ones that are more threatening to us humans.
That's right, and reason for their smaller size is because they have a biological and evolutionary advantage for being so small. Because they are so small, they can land on us without us feeling them, and through their biting mechanism, we don't even feel that they're on our skin. Whereas if a crane fly were to land on us, they're very visible, and if they were to bite, we would definitely feel it.
How long do these mosquitoes live? What's their lifespan, or how?
The average mosquito can live several weeks. There are some species whose eggs, like the Aedes mosquitoes, their eggs can actually stay viable for up to several years.
That's why one of the reasons why I always at the council meeting I tell the audience and my colleagues, you know, when you're at home, make sure you don't have no standing water, because that's how they reproduce, in standing water. We have plants, and we have those pots that that can hold just a little bit of water. With that water, they can reproduce. And
really?
so we have to make sure we don't have no standing water. Making sure that also that our pools are clean, and especially right after summer, sometimes we leave our pools, you know, become green, and that will create a lot of mosquitoes eggs, and that will reproduce a lot of those mosquitoes.
I remember several years ago when we had the recession, which is now pretty much over with. There was a problem with swimming pools and homes that were abandoned had a little bit of water left in them. They turned green, and they were apparently large areas for. Is that pretty much under control now?
The ones that we know of are under control. We are able to at least contact the banks and those who own the property to make sure that they don't cause a breeding issue, because one swimming pool that turns green and goes bad can produce 10,000 mosquitoes a week. And it's these small pools that are out there in neighborhoods that are causing a lot of grief for a lot of residents in the area. Now, while we have a handle on the pools that we know of, we know there are still thousands of pools out there in LA County that we don't know of. And even worse, we can't keep track of all the doughboys and kiddie pools that people have set up during the summer, and they just left them there for the season to turn into mosquito farms.
So we're talking about like a swimming pool. It covers a number of square feet, but I've heard that even if you have a bottle cap that's upside down with water in it, that could provide an area for mosquitoes to breed.
Definitely. We have seen mosquitoes breed in a little small container of a bottle cap. We have actually found potato chip bags with water in it to be breeding with mosquitoes. And these mosquitoes that live in our cities are adapted to our lifestyle. In a way, we're the prey and they're the predators.
Interesting. But now we're going to take a short break here for a couple of minutes and go over a couple other things that will appear on the screen and tell us more about these mosquitoes and the problem that we all face and what we're working on to resolve it. So we're going to take a quick break here for a couple of minutes, and then we'll be back on with some more interesting information on this problem. Thank you very much.
Did you know we're experiencing a mosquito invasion in LA County? Invasive Asian tiger mosquitoes and yellow fever mosquitoes currently pose a big threat to the way we live. These tiny black and white mosquitoes bite during the day, which means they can ruin your next barbecue or make spending time outdoors miserable. These mosquitoes can even live inside your home. Both mosquitoes can transmit debilitating diseases such as dengue and chikungunya. Stop these invasive mosquitoes before they take over your neighborhood. Keep your yard clean and dry. Dump out any standing water and get rid of water-holding containers. Report mosquito problems to the Greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District at 562-944-9656 or online at www.reportmosquitoes.org.
West Nile virus is primarily transmitted between birds by mosquitoes, but people can get it too. The virus is transmitted to humans through the bite of a mosquito infected with West Nile virus. Symptoms include fever, fatigue, vomiting, and muscle aches. There are ways to protect yourself from the mosquitoes that transmit West Nile virus. You can control mosquitoes by removing stagnant water from backyard sources such as discarded tires, buckets, plant saucers, and any containers capable of holding water. Wearing insect repellent at dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are active will keep them from biting. Together, we can protect ourselves from this disease spread by mosquitoes. For more information, contact the Greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District at 562-944-9656. Our services are at no extra charge to residents.
Welcome back to Southgate Informed. We have this great program going on today about mosquitoes and vectors. And Vice Mayor Davila, tell us a little bit. You've represented the city of Southgate on the Vector Control Authority for a number of years. Tell us a little bit about the organization. And I know at different council meetings, city council meetings, you try to inform the public and the city council on these issues. And you're kind of our expert, our resident expert on the city council on this problem. So tell us a little bit about the organization and what all is involved with it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I've been in vector control for over 13 years already, and I try to bring more information to our community to making sure they are informed. The board, we have approximately about 34 cities that makes the board, and what we do is we make sure that we have the funds to get this program going, and making sure that we have all the facilities that are needed in case of any emergency. One of the good things that we have with vector control is we have the educational bus that we take to the schools, and I think that's really important for our kids also to learn about, these mosquitoes and how they can help their parents, help themselves, but help their parents, making sure that there's no standing water. And they teach them about mosquitoes, and we have this bus that goes to schools, and every city we make sure that this bus and the information goes to schools who want to participate.
So this is not something new, but it's been going on for a while, the educational outreach.
It's been going now for a while already. Well, I've been in Vector for 13 years, and ever since they have a bus, and our schools have participated.
That's great.
So Libby, can you tell us about the symptoms of the West Nile, and also the symptoms about the Zika virus?
Yes, definitely. Those two are similar viruses, and they both transmitted through the bite of a mosquito. And with West Nile virus, 1 out of every 5 people will actually experience illness. They'll feel fever, rash, and sometimes muscle pain or joint pain. Unfortunately, there's a small percentage of people who do get West Nile virus that will require hospitalization because they do experience paralysis and sometimes coma. Unfortunately, with West Nile virus, people can die from West Nile virus. And we have seen in the past couple years more and more cases of people getting sick from West Nile virus, and unfortunately we have had fatalities in LA County. Now with Zika virus, it's a little different. It still has similarities to West Nile virus, where 1 in 5 people will feel sick. However, those who don't feel sick will still be able to carry the virus and transmit it to other people, whether it's through the bite of a mosquito or through sexual transmission. Now, the symptoms that people will feel with Zika virus is flu-like symptoms, so they get rashes. They also get some muscle and joint pain, and even red eyes, so conjunctivitis. Those are more of the mild symptoms that people will feel. The only upside, I guess you could say, to Zika virus symptoms is that not a lot of people will die from Zika. Those who do, that we have seen throughout the country and throughout South America, are those who've already had pre-existing health conditions, and the Zika virus just happened to tip over their health into the poorer side.
Now, a question I would have, are there any vaccinations for either West Nile or Zika? Now, the reason I mention this is when I was in the military, we got shots for yellow fever and different tropical diseases, which I guess would last a period of time. They've probably expired on me a long time ago, but what's the status of that for vaccination potential?
Unfortunately, for both West Nile virus and Zika virus, there are no vaccines currently available. For West Nile virus, there are vaccines for horses. They were able to get the vaccine to succeed enough so that a majority of horses who do get it will be immune. However, with people, we have not seen a successful vaccination for West Nile virus. The Zika virus is on the fast track in the United States on the research table to get a vaccine out, but any vaccine that comes into the US market will take usually at least 10 years to be available. With Zika, a lot of people are hoping that the vaccine will be available in a couple of years.
I believe that the Federal Center for Disease Control is working on that. There is some additional funding proposed for that, or they've received, which would be very helpful down the road somewhere.
Definitely. CDC and the National Institute of Health are both working closely together to make sure that we get some kind of vaccine or cure for people.
Now, there's another issue that you mentioned earlier, the midgeons, and these are these little flies or small things that are particularly are prominent down in the LA riverbed, and since I live very close to the LA River, we're a little closer to it, and at certain times of the year you can see these plumes of these things come up, and if you're on the bicycle trail or the equestrian trail along the east side of the LA River, that can be a problem. What does your authority do, or how do they work to contain this problem?
Well, our district definitely monitors and controls the populations in the along the LA River for midges. They are luckily not a vector of any serious viruses or parasites that we know of here, but they are a nuisance.
So they're just an annoyance then?
Yes, but they can negatively impact property values and commercial property, which is why they are of interest to us. And what we do is we make sure that we trap regularly out there to see and gauge the population of midges, and then using the trap data that we have, we react accordingly, and usually it'll be to eliminate the population there that we can find, and we do this on a monthly basis at least.
Now, I've noticed in Southgate, occasionally some of our homes have a little trap, a piece of cardboard, I don't know if it has fly paper in it or whatever, and folks come around once every week or so and look at them for different insects. Tell us a little bit about that trapping program.
Well, we definitely do have traps set up in Southgate, and the traps that are hanging in trees are actually from our partners, the Agricultural Commission, and they're the ones looking for some of these Mediterranean fruit flies or any other invasive pests that impact agriculture. The traps that we set up tend to be either low on the ground or hanging in trees further away from visible public eye, and those are the areas where we can trap a lot of mosquitoes.
See, many years ago we had the fruit fly infiltration. It must have been about 20 years ago or more, and they did some aerial spraying, and which was quite controversial at the time. Do you think that there's any need to consider that on this particular problem we have with the West Nile or the Zika mosquitoes?
Well, currently we do some localized spraying from backpacks, so we go door to door to people's yards, and if there's a high population of these Aedes mosquitoes or any mosquitoes, we will treat right then and there. We do have an emergency plan that's been set up, and we're working with the county public health on this, that if there's ever a situation where we have multiple cases of an outbreak in multiple locations throughout LA County, we'll be working with the county public health and state public health to coordinate a possible widespread area application if needed. Now, our philosophy is get rid of the water sources first. Let's do our part, get rid of standing water from our homes, our backyards and patios first, before we even have to consider using these aerial mechanisms.
So you'd think, because basically we live in an arid region where there shouldn't be a lot of standing water, but occasionally some folks might have an old tire in their backyard or something, and it's really hard to get the water out of there. And so we want to get the word out to our residents and businesses to do away with these problems, so we minimize the amount of breeding ground for these mosquitoes.
One of the other things that I think is important for us to inform our community, it's what repellents should we use, and how can we protect ourselves other than just dumping the water, but just so we can be aware of.
Well, if any of your residents are like me who go and look for insect repellent, the aisles are filled with all different sorts of brands, and it can get very confusing. So what we tell people is look for some of the basic ingredients, and these basic ingredients have been proven effective. And these ingredients are DEET, picaridin, IR3535, or a more natural one called oil of lemon eucalyptus. And each of these ingredients can be found in many of these different companies that sell insect repellent, and they're very effective.
They can also go into our website, our vector control website, and they can find all this information in there?
Absolutely. Our website that people can go to if they have any problems with mosquitoes is called reportmosquitoes.org. That's reportmosquitoes.org. And people can either submit a service request, and our services are at no extra charge to Southgate residents. And from there, they can also get more information about what we do at Vector Control.
And if somebody is particularly interested in your authority, when are your meetings that you have? I assume you have monthly meetings?
We do. Our meetings are every second Thursday of each month at 7 p.m.
Excellent. Well, do we have any other questions or concerns?
No, I just want to thank you for making this information happen. I think it's important for us to communicate our community, especially right now with you know, what we hear in the news. I mean, they really scare us, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we are prepared and we take care of ourselves, so none of those diseases can actually happen. But
well, it is. In looking at in the news here in the last little bit and seeing these little babies that have these deformities, that's why I thought it was very important to invite you in and Levy in here to go over and try to get our public informed on this so we can have a better handle on it, because really it boils down to good public health.
Absolutely, and that's why we always you know, ask our residents to please help us. You know, help us by throwing all the water out. If you see, like Levy mentioned earlier, potato chip bags and they have water, pick it up and make sure it doesn't have any water, because that's the only way that we can help each other and make sure that we have a healthy community, by making sure that we take care of those issues and don't let it grow.
Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us today on Southgate Informed, and particularly I want to thank Maria for being here with us, and Mr. Levy from the Vector Control folks, and look forward to seeing everyone again at another meeting, another Southgate Informed in the future, which will be on another interesting subject. I don't know exactly what it is at this point, but we'll have something, and we're trying to keep our public well informed on what's going on in the city of Southgate, and thank you again for viewing us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.